In today's video, we're going to be discussing whether or not Bitcoin will see a green upcoming week, going over the short-term price action in massive detail, bullish and bearish scenarios, Bitcoin dominance, the altcoin season, and the total cryptocurrency market cap. By the end of today's video, you will have a detailed understanding of not only what to expect, but how to prepare. Let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, Miguel team, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're all having an absolutely fantastic day today. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the short-term and macro price action, discussing why Bitcoin is still due for an imminent explosive move through the range high and into the parabolic phase. We're going to be discussing things such as bearish validation points, bullish trigger points, key levels you need to be paying attention to, the macro and short-term charts, Bitcoin dominance, altcoin season, and so much more. Before we do get into it, smash that like button, hit that comment button, and subscribe to the channel. We post daily videos of Bitcoin focusing on the facts, the data, the technical and the structural information, no hype, no BS, no emotion, pure raw TA. If that is the kind of content you are interested in, join us on Telegram. It is the first link down below. You'll get access to charts, updates, videos, educational posts, news events, and everything you need to stay in loop with cryptocurrency, with Bitcoin and the relevant economic news. If you are interested in taking your trading to the next level, join us on VIP, where we post trading setups with exact entries, exact targets, exact stop losses, trade justification, and exclusive analysis. You'll not only get access to our main channel here where we post all of our trades, you'll also get access to our group chats, our general chat, trading chart and education chat, trade setup, news, help, and daily video chat. If you are interested in getting access to that with nearly 700 members, contact me in the pinned comment by clicking my name or click these links here for more information. With that being said, let's dive into a video. So starting on the market data, how are we looking? 24-hour volume is down 38%, sitting at a total of 85 billion. That is expected as we do enter the weekend. It is totally normal for volume to essentially fall off a cliff. Looking at liquidations, with a massive reduction in volume, we have also seen a reduction in liquidations, down 50%, sitting at a total of 65 million. Of the 65 million in liquidations, we can see 38 million came from short positions, and 25 million came from long positions. Taking a brief look at the last 24 hours of price action, we can see Bitcoin broke out of that short-term downtrending diagonal resistance, which occupied about a 5 to 6 day length, which we discussed in our prior video. Not only did we see the breakout of that trend line, we saw a nice resistance flip of our short-term resistance at 68.5K. With that, we also saw a positive RSI breakout indicating the momentum flip positive. And with those three things, we saw the obvious trend, we saw structure, and we saw strength. So we met our 3 points of validation. When validating breakouts, we look for trend. Have we broken out the downtrend? Yes, we have. Have we broken through structural resistance? 68.5. Yes, we have. And do we have positive strength according to the momentum? Yes, we do. So 3 points of validation, validating that as an official breakout. So we have broken out of that downtrend, and now we are in an uptrend. We'll be discussing this in a moment when we do come back to the short term. So the last 24 hours of price action, after of which we did break out of its trend, has more or less been pushing sideways. This is as a result of, again, low weekend volume, volatility, and thus we don't see too much movement. Moving over to the broader market, so DXY did find short-term resistance at that yearly level of resistance. Again, that point of around 105. We are watching very closely this uptrending diagonal trend line on the RSI. Again, a breakdown of this trend line prior to the price action breaking down from this uptrend would indicate the momentum have flipped negative and the probabilities for a breakdown will have increased. Again, with all things, we do look for trend, structure, and strength. So if we do see a breakdown of this trend line with a breakdown of the RSI, this would validate the breakdown, suggesting we are now in a downtrend on the yearly uptrend. Okay, this is spanning from the start of 2024. Again, a breakdown from this trend line would be very bullish for traditional assets, including Bitcoin, including Bitcoin, sorry. Whereas if we do bounce from this region over here, we could see a directional continuation back up to these local high points, which could send the traditional markets into a short-term downward move. Again, watching how that develops over the coming weeks, as we are now in this apex point between that uptrending diagonal support and this horizontal yearly level of resistance. Moving over to the broader markets here on the S&P 500, we can see that weekly candle, guys, is very, very close to closing. In fact, it did close over here underneath that high point. So again, we do need to see a break on the weekly chart of this high point to see that directional continuation upwards. This local high at $5,330 is going to be the bullish trigger point for a directional continuation upwards. If we do break above there, particularly if we close a weekly candle above there, that is going to show some significant strength and propel the price action higher. That is mostly the key level we are watching going into this week, so pay attention to that. The same goes to the Dow Jones. To see that directional continuation higher, we do need to break above that respective resistance around $40,350. A weekly candle above there would indicate we are going much, much higher for the Dow Jones. Until then, we are seeing some sort of exhaustion developing from that region. Again, a bearish engulfing candle developing from there. We do have key structural support at 38K, so provided 38K is able to sustain, it is unlikely this short-term downward move would result in a high time frame downtrend. It's only if we lose 38,000 do we run the risk of seeing a fill of this VRPV gap and a correction to these 2021 high points, but until then, we are very much macro bullish. Let's go ahead and jump over to Bitcoin. So quick summary of what we're going to be discussing. We'll go over to short term, what is happening, what to expect next. We'll go over to higher time frame, talking about the high time frame range, key trigger points, targets, resistances, and supports. We'll be discussing the bull market trend line. We'll also be discussing the macro continuation into the parabolic phase and exactly the trigger point for that. We'll be going over Bitcoin dominance in reference to this yearly long uptrend, also discussing the possibility for a parabolic altcoin season, and finishing up by discussing the macro charts and why Bitcoin, according to our technical levels, is very much primed for an imminent move toward the upside. Let's go ahead and dive in. A quick word from today's video sponsor before we do. I wanted to briefly interrupt today's video to discuss the two exchanges we use on this channel, BitGet and BingX. So which exchange should you sign up to? If you look to the right hand side of the screen, you're going to see the list of differences in relation to KYC requirements and the countries these exchanges offer services to. The first link down below being the BitGet link and the second link down below being the BingX link. No matter which link you sign up to, you're going to get up to 15% discounts on your trading fees, up to $5,000 in trading rewards, and of course, you'll get access to every single MegaWow exclusive bonus campaign we run on these exchanges. Alongside that, BitGet and BingX are incredibly similar. They are both ranked top 10 in terms of trading volume. They both have extensive liquidity pools and market pairs offering up to 125x leverage. And most importantly, they both offer protection funds for their users to protect you against any third-party hacks. So get started now and support the channel by clicking the links below. Thanks for listening. Okay guys, let's go ahead and get stuck into it. Starting on the short term, we're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin's price action, what you need to be paying attention to, and what to expect next. So as we said a couple moments ago, Bitcoin broke out of that weekly downtrend as represented by, of course, the RSI breakout, the positive momentum shift, the breakout of the current downtrend as represented on the price action chart, and of course the price sustaining above that breakout point and the horizontal support at 68.5k. So we have now seen a breakout. The big question is, are we going higher? So let's go ahead and answer it. As we can see, Bitcoin has broken out and established a short-term uptrend. This short-term uptrend is represented by this diagonal trend line. And therefore, while Bitcoin is able to sustain above this diagonal trend line, the price action is expected to move within that trajectory of price action at a minimum, provided we are able to hold it. And again, that trajectory of price action will eventually result in the price action moving to our next level of resistance, which is going to be the 71.5 to 72.5k region. And that 71.5 to 72.5k region is going to be the range high of the current 2-month plus long horizontal region. As you can see, this region right over here is going to be that range high area. So we are expecting a retest of the range high of this resistance as we did over here, provided that short-term uptrend, which is this diagonal trend line, is able to sustain. So if we're able to remain above this level, we are expecting a directional continuation into that upper region of resistance. That is it. We have to keep it nice and simple. We have again the 3 points of validation we look for. We have strength, we have the trend break, and we have the structural break. So we have everything we are looking for validation that we're going to see a continuation upwards. We are likely to see that directional move. Again, invalidation of that is going to be a breakdown of that trend line. So let's now talk about the bearish and bullish case scenarios, particularly in reference to the next couple days of price action and next 24 hours of price action. So if the bears are wanting to take back control, they need to push the price underneath this point right over here, which is going to be our prior higher low area. Again, we established a higher low over here. This is our initial low. We established a higher low, and we were establishing higher lows in this whole region upwards. Again, this is going to be representative of that uptrending diagonal trend line on the short term we have actually just recently established. Furthermore, we do have confluence at this level with, again, our bearish trigger point, which is the $66,000 to $67,000 major level of support, and of course the dotted trend line, which is the midline, the midpoint, the exact midpoint between the range high and the range low of the current high time frame horizontal consolidation range. So we have a whole bunch of support below us that the bears will need to break through if we do want to see a directional continuation sub 66 to 67,000. Hypothetically, if the bears are able to push the price underneath 67 to 66,000, we would see a correction towards our next level of support, which is going to be the 64.5k region. On the flip side, we have our high over here, we have our lower high, we have our lower high, and we have our lower high. This was the prior or the foremost lower high, which was eventually broken, pushing Bitcoin into an uptrend. This area was retested as support, and logically, if we break down from that key bearish trigger point, would be our first initial retest point, or our point of which we could see a reversal develop from, or at least a point of support. Again, that would be the 64.5k region. If 64.5k is lost, we would expect to see a breakdown and continuation into this uptrend. Now, this uptrend is more or less coinciding with this trend line, and thus a breakdown from the trend line would result in a breakdown from the support level, and that and there only is where the bears would take control of the price action. So for the bears to take control of this price action, all of this support would need to be reclaimed, and the price action would need to break below this uptrending diagonal trend line. That alone would push the price action lower into the 60k region. So again, the probability of this happening is incredibly low, while we do have all these bullish validation points and all these trends we are sitting right above. So overall, it is still looking very good for a directional continuation upwards. If we do zoom out a little bit more to the daily chart, we can see we have a very major uptrending diagonal trend line. And this uptrending diagonal trend line is going to be this diagonal trend line we can see over here. We established this trend line back on the 13th of October, and we actually validated this trend line on the 24th of January. This is a 7 to 8 month long uptrend, and this trend line here is actually a representation of the bull market. So if we take a look at the price action prior, we had our bear market into our dead cat bounce high, into capitulation, into all-time lows. This was the bullish reversal structure, which was the falling wedge, developing a yearly and macro uptrend into our bear market resistance point. When we broke above our bear market resistance, we entered a bull market. That is when the bull market started, right over here in October 2023. With that breakout, we eventually created an initial higher low, and that initial higher low with the initial low point established the bull market uptrend. So for the bears to break the bull market uptrend and thus invalidate the possibility for a parabolic cycle, we would need to see the price action lose this uptrending trend line, and for that to happen, all of those bearish validations we talked about in the short term would need to come to fruition. So very low chance over there. Looking at the bright side of this structure, if we take a look at the higher time frame range for what it is, let's just go ahead and just remove basically everything off this chart really quickly and draw in that high time frame range for what it is right over here. Okay, that is going to be our high time frame range, a little bit lower actually to get our range low. There we go. This range, again, we have deviation to the high, we have deviation to the low. If we take a measured move of the range, which is the depth of the range, apply it to the perceived breakout point, that perceived breakout point takes us over 85,000. Again, if we look at horizontal consolidations, the directional entry into the channel, we have a directional entry upwards, okay, into the consolidation, generally indicates the directional exit. So it is not always, but it is more likely when we see a directional entry into a channel, we see that similar directional exit in the same direction of which the channel entered in. So we have seen that directional continuation into the channel. We have seen 2 months of consolidation. With that 2 months of consolidation, we have seen a reduction in volatility and a reduction in momentum. Again, after we see a massive surge in volatility and a surge in momentum, okay, since there's an average of price action over time, and then we see a massive reduction as a consequence of the price action moving sideways, this can be misinterpreted as exhaustion, okay? It is not exhaustion, it is absorption, it is bullish consolidation, particularly when the momentum has flipped back positive. So we bring up that RSI again, we go to something like a daily chart, we can see if we take a look at that initial bearish divergence, which was here, and we drag that high point downwards to our prior highs, okay, right over here, which again was our retest. Let's go ahead and line it up perfectly. Our retest of that trend line right over here to right over here, we have broken out quite some time ago. So we do have positive momentum here on the daily chart. Again, this will be the first time if we do retest this range high, we will be retesting that range high from a position of momentum or position of strength as opposed to a position of weakness. Again, further illustrating the likelihood of a breakout of this region if we do retest it yet again. So overall, higher time frame charts, daily charts, short-term charts are looking good, okay? We're not out of the woods yet. We definitely need to see, again, this range high break. For us to see that macro continuation, we need to break above that deviation high. So the trigger point is at 73.8K. Only when this point is broken can we say, without a doubt, we are 100% most definitely going to go higher, okay? There is still a risk we do see corrections, as I have illustrated those risks, okay, and defined the validations for those directional moves. We are still within this channel. We do have to remember, we are still within this channel, and while we are in a channel, any movement from the range high to the range low should be considered possible and healthy movement, okay? The price action can move between the range high and range low, and the trend can remain established. Again, it is only if the range low of the channel or the range high of the channel breaks do we see directional continuations in the direction of which the channel broke. So keep that in mind, guys. The probabilities of breaking upwards if retested are much higher, but there is always still a risk we do see these downside movements while we are sitting in this channel. Let's go over to the Bitcoin dominance chart. Bitcoin dominance, guys, is preparing for a directional continuation downwards. What we have seen historically is every single time we see these large movements, okay, in Bitcoin dominance downwards, that is when we see altcoin season. More, however, when we do see these downward movements, we generally see Bitcoin dominance drop and stop at around 38 to 40%. That is also where Bitcoin ends up creating a high, a top point, a pi cycle high, an all-time high, bull run top, whatever you want to call it. That is generally when we do see a top point. So we're going to see something similar to what we have seen historically. We are expecting a large correction of Bitcoin dominance to take us to around that 40% region for Bitcoin. Again, if we do see Bitcoin dominance drop with the total cryptocurrency market cap rising, that would indicate we are entering the altcoin season. Now, the altcoin season is not like a light switch where you just flick it and it turns on. It is a gradual process where strength slowly starts to move in favor of altcoins in comparison to Bitcoin. Again, just because we are entering an altcoin season doesn't mean Bitcoin won't rally. If we do see the total crypto market cap rise with Bitcoin dominance falling, both Bitcoin and altcoins rise in value, but altcoins rise more percentage-wise. They take the cake, they grow a little bit quicker. So that is what we would call a altcoin season. So for that to happen, we need to see the total cryptocurrency market cap increase, and we need to see Bitcoin dominance decrease. And what we are seeing here is Bitcoin dominance is retesting that 1 year long uptrend. So a perfect potential point for a correction to start or a downtrend to establish. Furthermore, we are retesting a support level for Bitcoin dominance in the prior 2019, okay, the 2020 bear market for Bitcoin. So again, a perfect rejection point for Bitcoin dominance. If we do take a look at the altcoin season here, guys, for altcoins to go parabolic, we need to break over a specific trigger point. Just like for Bitcoin to go into that macro directional move upwards, there's a specific level we need to break over. For altcoins, it is the same. For altcoins, that level is going to be sitting at an exact point of 844 billion on the total 3 market cap. This is going to be point number 1. If we do take a look at point number 1 in prior cycle, the dead cat bounce high after the bull run top, that level of resistance, when we finally break out of that point, we enter the parabolic phase. So again, we only enter a parabolic phase for altcoins once 844 billion breaks. That is when we see a parabolic phase. So let's talk about really quickly invalidations for this pattern. If we see the Pi cycle indicator, the midline of the Pi cycle indicator break downwards, okay? What I mean by that, I mean a weekly candle close below the green line, which is the low short EMA, okay? If we see that level break, okay, on the weekly chart, and we see a weekly candle close under it, that would indicate to me that we are seeing a significant shift in high time frame strength to weakness and potentially a top signal for altcoins. Again, what we saw historically is when we entered that phase number 4, we came down and retested, but we remained above it the entire time until we created the initial Pi cycle high top. Okay, so we are expecting a similar scenario here, which is we remain above the midlines until we break number 1 into the parabolic phase and see that directional continuation upwards. If we do take a look at these structural formations and patterns of which we have seen on this cycle, we have got point number 1, which is a dead cat bounce high. Point number 2, which is that bear market resistance, right? This is the bear market resistance. Point number 3, which is the breakout of the bear market resistance and multi-month sideways consolidation. This is where Bitcoin starts to go parabolic, right? This is where Bitcoin enters the bull market, but altcoins are still lagging, okay? Then we move to phase number 4, where altcoins start to rally. They start to gain some strength. We start to see leading altcoins outperform, such as Peep has done very, very well. Link, near some very strong altcoins that are outperforming other altcoins. But in this phase, we also see a brutal correction for altcoins. A lot of altcoins dropping 30, 40, 50, even 60% to a retesting Pi cycle midline, which is going to be that red circle. We saw that happen a few weeks ago. And then from that point, we see a directional continuation upwards to break through point number 1 and enter that parabolic phase, which we see explosive price action to, again, an all-time high. That is the altcoin season. Again, for that to happen, we need to see Bitcoin dominance drop and we need to see the total market cap increase. So let's finish up the video by talking about the weekly charts and then we'll wrap it up. Taking a look at the total market cap, we can see the total market cap is retesting and has bounced from a key level of yearly resistance, okay? This is our yearly bull market trigger point, okay? The parabolic phase trigger point for the total cryptocurrency market cap. So technically here, guys, while the total cryptocurrency market cap remains above this level, we are exceptionally bullish on the higher time frame. If we break below this level, we are bearish on the higher time frame and we enter a higher time frame downtrend. So while cryptocurrency remains above here, expect macro directional continuations upwards. It is literally as simple as that. This is a representation of the entire cryptocurrency market. What this is telling us is telling us that we had a major level of resistance, we entered a macro downtrend, we broke out of that major resistance, we have come down to retest it, and we have bounced. We have retested it as support, a classic support resistance flip. Fantastic stuff, looking for directional continuations. The same goes to the Bitcoin weekly chart. Again, this is our Pi cycle high point, major resistance. We saw deviation in the 2021 high. We saw a directional continuation downwards here. We saw a breakout of that resistance. We've seen a retest of support of the Pi cycle high, a support resistance flip, expecting directional continuations upward. Invalidation of this is a breakdown of 60,000, just as like we said on this higher time frame chart. If we see a breakdown of the 60,000 region, we will likely retest that bull market uptrend And if we retest that bull market uptrend, we run the risk of entering a high time frame downtrend. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a fantastic day. Catch you guys in tomorrow's video, where we'll discuss in more detail these macro charts, cyclical lengths and patterns, different technical theories, and even potential bull run top targets based on mathematics. So we'll see you then. Bye.